Good afternoon, class. How is your day so far? That's good to hear. So, can I expect a full glass of energy and active participation from you? Okay, before we begin our lesson this morning, let us ask the guidance of our Almighty God and let us enlighten our mind to completely understand the lesson this morning. Would you please lead the prayer, Miss Guba? Okay, class, before you sit down, I would like to request everyone to please arrange their chairs properly and make sure there are no trashes around you. Okay, you may sit down. Miss Secretary, can you please list down the names of those students who are not around and give it to me right after the class? Thank you. So our lesson for today is all about the characteristics of culture. But first, let us define what is culture. Yes, Miss Guba. That's correct. According to E.V. Taylor, Primitive Culture 1871, definitions of culture, that complex whole includes knowledge, belief, art, law, morals, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man or humanity as a member of our society. So culture is a characteristics and knowledge of a particular group of people encompassing language, religion, cuisine, social habits, music, and arts. Culture encompassing language, food, what we wear, how we wear it, our language, marriage, music, what we think is right or wrong, how we sit at the table, how we greet our visitors, and how we behave in our loved ones, or a million other things. Or in simple words, culture is a word for the way of life of a particular group of people, meaning the way they do things. Do you understand, class? Okay, let's move on to the characteristics of culture. What is the characteristics of culture? So I have here prepared a simple activity called 4 pics, 1 word. This activity is very simple. Each level has 4 pictures. This place linked to a 1 word, which is the characteristics of culture. Your aim is to know what is the word that is being portrayed by a picture. Do you understand, class? Okay, let's start. First pictures. Yes, Miss Correct. That's correct. Learned. One of the characteristics of culture is learned. People are not born with culture. They have to learn it. In all human societies, children learn culture from their adults. Anthropologists call this process enculturation or cultural transmission. So all culture is learned rather than biologically inherited. The process of transmitting culture from one generation to another generation is called enculturation. And through this enculturation, individuals learned the socially appropriate way to satisfy biologically determined needs. Do you understand, class? Okay. Next pictures. Yes, Miss Guba. That's correct. Shared. Another characteristics of culture is shared. People living together in a society share culture. For example, all the people living in the Philippines share the Philippine language, dress in similar styles, eat many of the same foods, and celebrate many of the same holidays. Culture cannot exist without a society. There is no known human societies that do not exhibit culture. All is not uniform within a culture. There is some big difference between men and women's roles in any human societies. Do you understand, class? Is there any questions about it? Okay. Let's go on to our next pictures. Yes, Miss Guba. That's correct. Symbols. Another characteristics of culture is symbols. Culture is based on symbols. People have culture primarily because they can communicate with and understand symbols. Symbols allow people to develop complex thoughts and to exchange those thoughts with others. Language and other forms of symbolic communication enable people to create, explain, and record new ideas and information. Culture is signs, emblems, and other things that represent something else in a meaningful way. Culture can be transmitted through ideas, emotions, and desires expressed in language. And through language, arts, and behavior, humans transmit culture from one generation to another generation. Do you understand, class? Is there any questions about it? Okay. Let's go on to our next pictures. Yes, Miss Carell. That's correct. Integrated. Another characteristics of culture is integrated. In order to keep culture functioning, all aspects of the culture must be integrated. For example, the language must be able to describe all the functions within the culture in order for ideas to be transmitted from one person to another. Every culture is integrated system wherein there are functioning relationships among the economic base or the structure and the social organization or social structure and the ideology or the superstructure. Do you understand, class? Is there any questions about it? Okay. Now, let's move on to our last pictures. Yes, Miss Corel. That's correct. Dynamic. Another characteristics of culture is dynamic. No culture ever remains constant or changeless. It's subject to slow but constant change. Addition of new traits and vanishing of old traits. The rate of change and the aspects of culture that change varies from society to society. Cultures are dynamic systems that respond to motions and actions within and around them. A culture must be flexible enough to allow such adjustments in the face of unstable or changing circumstances. Do you understand, class? Is there any questions about it? Now, who can tell me the 5 characteristics of culture that we have been discussed? Yes, Miss Guba. That's correct. The 5 characteristics of culture is learned, culture is shared, culture is based on symbols, culture is integrated, and culture is dynamic. Is it clear, class? Okay. This will be the end of my discussions. Thank you for listening and participating. I hope you learned something.